Hi. So, my name's Jed Watson. I'm here to talk about going mobile with React. And so I work for a company called ThinkMill in Sydney. We do a lot of open source development, and we've been working on something we call the tech stack, which includes Elemental UI. It's a UI library for react.js, Keystone, which is actually React-powered content management application server for Node, and touchstone, which I'll be talking about today. But just before I get into it, I wanted to give you a little bit of a perspective of where we're coming on from here. I think we love JavaScript. Like, we're just super enthusiasts about it. It's all we program in these days. We also love open source. We're very passionate about sharing work and collaborating with the global community. We also love great user experience. This is really important, I think, in everything that we do as a community. And we also love great developer experience. If you have a great developer experience, then you're much more likely to have a great user experience at the other end of it. So experience really matters. This is something that we sort of hold true in everything that we do. And so, I mean, that's kind of like, we're here to talk about going mobile. And this is actually how all of the things that I just mentioned come back together again. When we talk about going mobile with React, there are really two things we could talk about here. There's the mobile web, which is your responsive mobile desktop sites when they're displayed on a mobile device. And then there are mobile apps, so native apps that are installed from an app store. And today I'm going to be focusing on the mobile app sort of side of this, but hopefully a lot of the techniques and concepts that I go through would also be relevant to a mobile web experience as well. So, current mobile development landscape that we live in, it's 2015, what does it look like? We have native and we have web views. It's been this way since Cordova's first version was published as PhoneGap in the very early days of iOS development. We can either build an app that's native, or we can build an app in a web view and wrap it up and put it in the App Store. And sorry for the interruption. I'm just trying to work out if I can get my presenter notes on here. It'll help me a lot. Yeah, there we go. Cool. And then this happened at the start of the year. We've got React Native, which sort of eats into both. But actual native, here we go. So actual native is great for sophisticated apps. You get access to low-level APIs, you get great performance. I think everyone's sold on the concept of a native app. And it's a lot closer to a lot of things that Sebastian talked about yesterday. The web, on the other hand, is, sorry. Good. Okay, the web is actually great for the development workflow. The web is a fantastic platform for presenting information. It's cross-platform, and it gives us all these goodies like hot reloading and browser debugging, and we got things like the mobile Safari inspector. And React Native kind of sits in the middle of both of these. So I think React Native eats into use cases where you otherwise might have turned to native development, and I think it also eats into use cases where you probably would have wanted to use web technology. But I think the core of what I'm trying to present today is that it's actually not a competition. Let's talk about hybrid apps for a minute. So who knows what a hybrid app is? Just, yep, that's a lot of hands. Who thinks they suck? Yeah, I knew there'd be some hands. Who thinks they can be great? That's about the same number of hands, so that's really cool. So I believe they can be great, but I also wanted to present that most apps are actually hybrids. They're hybrid experiences. If you use Twitter's mobile app, which is a native implemented app in iOS and Android, you're pulling up web views to browse content. If you're looking at a web-based hybrid app that's implemented in web views, then you're actually running it in a native shell. So it's sort of about like getting all the technologies that are available to us and making them work well together. And this is also, I guess, to talk about the web platform and what we can do with it. So I wanted to put this up for a second, a little bit cheeky here, because this is the React Native pitch. But I also wanted to point out that you already know web technology. It works in the browser. It works on mobile. It also works in desktop apps with things like Atom that are really pushing that edge forward. So today, I think that it's safe to say that everyone here develops apps, publishes information, and creates engaging user experiences using web technology. This is what we do as web developers. We love React because it lets us do this more easily, more effectively, and it makes it more fun to do. But what if you could apply this knowledge to building native apps? What if you could actually make a great user experience in a mobile app using what you know from web technology? I'm not just talking about JavaScript, I'm not just talking about React, I'm talking about your understanding of CSS, your understanding of the browser. How can you take that benefit and apply it to native apps without them sort of falling into this native apps suck thing? So I'm sure you're all probably familiar with this. It's not possible to build a native feeling app using web technology. I mean, I would attribute that just to people. I've heard it a lot. I disagree with it. It is totally possible to build a native feeling app using web technology. Do you believe me? I feel like after watching a few of the other presentations, I probably should have prepared a to-do MVC demo to kind of show this off. But instead, we built you an app. We built you ReactEurope, the app that I know at least a few hundred of you have installed and have registered. And I guess the big reveal here is that that's all implemented 100% inside WebViews. So we've got a native wrapper called Over that we've used to package it up and put it in the App Store. But all of the interactions that you're actually engaging with when you're using that app are implemented using web technology. Nothing fancy, no hacks, no native UI. In order to kind of talk about how we've done that and give you some ideas that you can use in your own mobile apps or mobile websites, first just going to take a little bit of a tour in case some people haven't used the app, just to give myself some reference here. So got a little video of the app, and I wanted to show you some of the things that we've solved that are native application paradigms we've implemented in WebViews. So the first one is we have offline state handling. Hopefully that video will start playing. Why are you not playing? Oh, it's just not playing on mine. Right, sorry, that's so confusing. Right, we've got native integrations for things like Twitter. We've got these scrollable views that bounce like native views. If we have a look at this main list for the schedule, we have sticky headers for the days. We have this neat little scroll to top thing like a native app, even though it's a nested container. If you tap the top bar, it will just animate you right back up to the top. In the middle of a scroll too, which is kind of fancier than it sounds. We have nested view navigation. This is kind of a big deal in mobile apps. You want it to feel like a native app, like you're not constrained in the layout or the design. So we actually navigate between views that have no Chrome, views that have a title bar, and views that have a tab bar. And different things animate together. We have saved scroll position when you navigate between different views. And we have a bunch of other things that we've put in here. So animations are nice and smooth. We've got data loading from our API server. We've got real-time updates pushed down if the schedule changes. We've got those of you who've registered, you can search for other registered people, star them, and get in contact with them after the event. A whole lot of stuff. So that's the ReactEurope app. I guess at this point, it's probably worth saying, I'm not here to tell you that you should build everything in a web view, but I really want to make the argument that you can build a good experience in a web view. It is important to know the limits, the use cases, the places you should and shouldn't do this. It's also really important to know the techniques, so I'll go through that for most of the rest of the talk. But the point I want to make is that when you know the techniques and when you can use them, web technology, which is powered by React, becomes a really powerful tool in your mobile development arsenal, and it shouldn't be dismissed. So this is not just about doing with the web, but it's just saying, like, a lot of us are building hybrid apps. There's a huge number of hybrid apps on the web store. This is about doing it well. I'm going to get the bad stuff out of the way first, so let's talk about limits for a second. It's really important to know when not to use a web view. If you're Facebook or if you're Twitter, probably don't implement timeline in a web view. I think we've heard that's sort of like the most classic fail of hybrid apps was Facebook. So they came out and said, we can't do this. And I totally agree. But you know what, most of us actually aren't Facebook, and we're not building apps that have that requirement, which means that it's not a good idea to listen to that outcome and apply it to our situation. The fact is that there are a lot of other situations that we're in as app developers, and some of them this is really appropriate for. Data-intensive applications is probably not your best bet, although we have built a Bitcoin wallet that's in the App Store using web views, so I don't know, that's a little bit intensive. It's kind of interesting. Processor intensive, same thing. If you've got really complex animations in your UI, and like this is to be seen, I mean, we've seen a lot of really cool animation stuff at this conference. I can't wait to get my hands on the things that Chenglu just showed us. But you know, complex animations and complex interactions might be areas where it'll fall down, and it's worth experimenting. Also memory management, like really, it's 2015. Can we not, I want some memory management. Anyway, it's not gonna happen. Let's move on to the good stuff, techniques. How do we do this? So first of all, mobile is a really modern development environment. If you're used to working on the web and you've got to support all the way back to like i8, then like you're sort of used to thinking you can't use the cool new toys that are coming out every year. Mobile's not like that. On iOS, we get these huge adoption rates of new versions. We also generally like see a huge market of really modern devices. And on Android, there's a program called Crosswalk that you can use with Cordova to bundle the latest version of the browser engine with your app. So you're not relying on the app that was actually vended on the probably 2-year-old version of the operating system that your user is running. You can give them the latest and greatest. You can test against a single version. You can trust it's going to work. This is just a hugely powerful advantage for developing for mobile with the web. So the key techniques that you need to do this well are number one, React. That's important. You need to handle touch really well. That's actually probably the most important thing that you need to do. Layout is important. I'll go through how that works for mobile apps. And navigation, of course. It's just a different navigation paradigm to create a mobile app than it is to create a web app. And of course, the controls and animations in the UI library that goes with that. So starting with React, we're all here to talk about React. I think we're all very excited about it. It's an amazing, stable, performant platform as the foundation of a mobile app. I think you're all sold. Touch. Touch is really important. This is a much less abstracted input than we're used to, right? If I'm using my computer, I've got a mouse, I've got a keyboard, my hands are like this, I'm sort of dealing with this thing that's abstracted from the screen that's up here that I'm looking at, and it's just a disconnected experience. If I've got my phone, however, think about how different it is that I'm touching the UI, I'm interacting with it. There is no abstraction between me and the user interface. It's responding to me directly. This is why touch is such an important thing to get right on mobile. It is the make or break. If you handle it badly, then when I touch something in the real world, I expect it to respond to me immediately. If I touch something on my mobile app, I also expect it to respond immediately, and if it doesn't, then I'm going to feel like this is not real, it's not native, it's not responding to me correctly, I don't like this app, I don't really want to use it, it wasn't very well built. So yeah, that's like, let's talk about how. How do you do that? Touch, you want that instant feedback. You're scrolling, I don't know if you've noticed, but if you tap on something and then you start scrolling, it will cancel the tap event. You can tap and hold, and that gives you a press, which sometimes is handled. It's kind of like an on double-click handler, but just from a long tap. If you put your finger on a button on iOS, like in the navigation bar, drag it away, and then return, you'll notice it re-highlights. It'll actually cancel and then return to the press. Little things like this give an app away if it doesn't handle them. You've got on touch start, halt scrolling. If you're scrolling momentum through a list and tap, it won't actually navigate into whatever you tapped on. And highlights slightly delayed in a scrollable container. Like, these are really important little things. We've solved this with a package called React Tappable, which you can use today. It's on NPM, and it just looks like this. Basically, drop it in, use it like you would an anchor. You can pass it a component. If you want it to be a span or a div or another component, that's fine. And it's also available as a mix-in, so you can put it in another one of your components. But it abstracts all of this for you. So I guess if you want to handle those things, use this component. We've been working on it extensively for months, and it will definitely help you. It's available on GitHub there. The next thing to go through, layout. So layout is different on a web page and a mobile app. You want a web page to scroll. Right? You don't want your Chrome to stick at the top. It's a very small screen. You want as much content on there as possible. An application, however, is different. You want the navigation to stay there. So again, we've built a component that does this using Flexbox, because Flexbox is the right way to do this. And these containers can be scrollable, they're flexible, they respond to grow and shrink areas. And I'll give you a quick demonstration of how this works in a mobile app. So if you've got a box, looks like a mobile. What we've got here is a container. We've got a navigation bar up the top. We've got a tab navigator down the bottom. And we've got this scrollable area in the middle. This would be the code to implement that layout. And then if you were to add a search field in, like on the people view of ReactEurope, it would sort of take up the space that it needs, and then the scrollable area would collapse to take up the remaining space. So this is entirely doable with Flexbox, but React Container implements that with a few other niceties just exposed as props so that you have a very declarative approach to how you want your app laid out. We do some other funny things with scrolling, actually. So it's not totally easy to get native feeling scrolling on a mobile device. This is how we do it. WebKit has this property called WebKit Overflow Scrolling Touch. So a lot of other frameworks and libraries that I've seen will try and re-implement scrolling. Pete Hunt did this a couple of years ago to get a frosted glass effect, and he had to hack everything, and he used the Zynga scroller to do it. And it's close, but it's not right. But it's 2015. We have a CSS property for this. We don't have to re-implement the scrolling algorithm that iOS has. We just use it, and it's natively accelerated. And that's why the scrolling performance in this app is really good. We also have a little trick that we do of making sure that the difference between mobile and mobile web views, mobile native and mobile web views is mobile native. If there's nothing to scroll, but it's a scrollable area, it will still bounce. And this trick of putting a 1 pixel at the top and a bottom of a container will make that happen. So there's always something to scroll, but the user can't actually scroll to it. So you get that bouncy effect even on pages when you don't know what the size of the device or the container or anything else is. We also have a trick in that component to handle scroll position retention, which is really simple. It doesn't impact performance at all. And it just listens to the mount and unmount event and uses the scroll position to do so. So that's another really important thing if you're flicking between views in a mobile app and it hasn't remembered where you were on the last view. In React, that's a little challenging because we're mounting and unmounting components for each view, but this gets around it. So that's a thing that you could also use if you wanted when developing mobile apps. A lot of the rest of this is just CSS stuff. So this is how we do the sticky headers. I wish I could stand up here and impress you all with how clever we were, but there's really just a CSS property for that. It's important to get things out of the document flow and reduce repaints. These techniques are, you know them well. You can still use them on mobile. They help. And then there's a bunch of other techniques that sort of make more available after the talk. You want to tap into your hardware acceleration, not with all of your elements, but with some of them. And you want to be able to disable pointer events and things like that. So going back to what I said about that experiment that Pete did and the concept of re-implementing a scroller, if you rebuild a complex native interaction using DOM hacks, basically, you've just lost a battle. And that's, I think, the trap that a lot of developers have fallen into. If you lose too many battles, you lose the war and your app doesn't feel very good. The key is to use what we've got in the platform, know it, and use it well, and then we don't lose too many battles, and our app feels great. So the point there is just target today. Don't trust 2-year-old Stack Overflow answers. They're probably wrong. you know, we've gone from iOS 6 to iOS 8 in that time, and everything looks different. So use modern techniques and enjoy them. There's also, like, it's getting better, right? Target today, but tomorrow, we actually get this. This is going to be really cool. That whole frosted glass effect in iOS, we'll be able to do that in our web views using this new backdrop filter property that's just been announced in Safari 9. And we're getting things like a force touch API and scroll snapping for, like, thank goodness. So again, like, less stuff that we have to hack around, more things implemented in the native platform that we have access to in the web platform. Now, for everything else in these techniques, we built a framework called touchstone.js. You can probably think of Touchstone a little bit like React Router for mobile. It handles navigation, it handles nested views, it also has a UI component library, which React Router doesn't, but Touchstone does. It implements React Container, it implements React Tappable, it implements all of the things that I've just shown you. And there's a Touchstone starter project that you can clone, and we'll be releasing a CLI generator shortly to go along with that. Actually, something else, just before Michael gets up here and gives his talk, we're also looking at using the actual React Router for mobile and building that into Touchstone. It's a different navigation paradigm, but with the API changes they've got in 1.0 coming soon, we think we'll actually be able to get that a more consistent developer experience, so we'll work on that. The application and navigation structure that Touchstone exposes looks like this. So navigation bar, you've got a view manager with views. It kind of looks like you're describing routes in React Router. It was like, and thanks, by the way, to both Michael and Ryan for all of your work on that. It's been hugely instrumental in us learning how to achieve this ourselves. There's a link property, so you can just link to a view in a view manager. And it comes with a bunch of controls that you can use as well. So, you know, I'm showing you iOS ones. We're working on Android themes as well. So there's all that. We used Cordova to package it. We used a bunch of Cordova plugins to package it. This is where the hybrid thing really shines, because even though we wanted to create the user interface in a web view, we wanted to use native functionality as well. When you're accessing that platform, these are available. And this is, like, we're excited about what we've done. We're excited about the things we've worked out. It's one thing to get up here and just sort of reel off all these details at you. But what's more interesting is to open source it. So we open sourced Touchstone, which you can all use if you want to develop hybrid mobile apps. But today, I'm also very, very happy to announce that we are also open sourcing a new Touchstone starter app, the ReactEurope app itself, the API server that we've written that powers the ReactEurope app, and all of the sketch files and design assets that we developed while we were building the mobile app. So that's I'm not kidding. We're so excited to actually be sharing this with you, and yeah, this is a great moment. The API server, by the way, is all running in Node.js. This is the K in our tech stack. It's kind of cool. It has Flux patterns implemented in the app, and then this API server in the background. I'm keen to get Relay and some GraphQL in that later. And this is the page that you guys can go to download our show bag. So we've put that together for you. Now, it wouldn't really be a talk on going mobile with React without mentioning React Native. Like, what does React Native mean for this? I was in the room when it was announced, and I was like, oh, God. And I died a little on the inside, because we just launched Touchstone as like the way to do mobile apps with React 3 weeks earlier. I'm like, oh, come on. But it's amazing. It's really cool what's being done. And when we got a chance to have a look at it, we realized that it's not competing at all with the concept of creating hybrid mobile apps, because this is all React. You know, we use web technology today because we wanted to give those of you in the audience with Android an app, but you know, tomorrow we can use React Native, and if the framework that we've built is portable, like, that's kind of cool. So some things that we think we might like to do to blend the concepts I've shown you today and React Native in the future include possibly a Touchstone app view. I think it would be really cool. I love the idea of being able to replace some of the stuff I use Cordova for with React Native. If we could get like a Cordova-style web view in a React Native app, we could really be blending some very cool UI, where you might have some of it coming from a web server out of a CMS, because that's just how that content's being written, into the middle of this other thing, and it's all React end-to-end. And if you we'll see. I'd love to get here. Also, turning Touchstone into a high-level framework for React Native. So the same problems that we've been solving in the web layout and navigation paradigms, there's a lot of room, I think, for something like that in React Native to give you an application framework when that's what you want. And not always what you want, by the way, but sometimes it's really helpful to have that there. So what's next? I mentioned integration with React Router and styles and components. Michael sold me yesterday on that pretty comprehensively. So we're looking to do that. I can't wait to get my hand on Chenglu's animation library and the new React animation stuff and see how that goes on mobile. Live packaging and deployment are a really interesting thing. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but you can push hot updates to JavaScript code or HTML assets and display them if you're using a hybrid web view without going through an App Store resubmission process. So if anyone's ever felt the pain of an App Store resubmission to fix a little bug and you're using web, that's actually something that you can not have to live with anymore. It's exciting. And yeah, Touchstone native, we'll see. One other thing I want to mention, one last thing, is desktop. So a lot of the techniques, I don't know if we'll see a React Native for desktop. After Sebastian's talk yesterday, I think really anything is possible. But using the same techniques you built to build a mobile app, particularly an iPad app, which is laid out very differently, you can actually bundle this up with Electron, which is the open sourced thing that powers Atom. GitHub extracted that from Atom and have made it, and there's a lot of projects using it now. You can basically take a lot of the paradigms that I've just gone through and apply them to a desktop app as well, particularly native and touch interaction if you think about Windows 10 tablets and the way they implement both touch and mouse. A lot of the things that I've gone through are going to be very important on that platform. So to wrap up, you can use web views. Just know the techniques, know the limits. Sebastian spoke yesterday about the difficulties with the DOM and working in this highly abstracted language. But we are web developers, and we should just keep screaming for better support from our mobile browsers. The web is so important, I think, as a platform. It is the open platform that we've got to work with. Let's defend it, let's use it, and let's push it forward. Handle touch well, lay it out like an app. The web platform is really worth investing in, and hybrid apps don't mean a crap user experience. They mean the best of both native and the web for user experience and for developer experience. Focus on user experience. It's really important, which also means focus on developer experience. We want hot reloading. We want inspectors we want to be able to run this stuff in a browser, run it in a mobile app, and we want that experience to be streamlined. We will create a better user experience under those conditions. So yeah, that's basically it. Embrace the web, please. Also embrace native. It's great. And get involved. All of our stuff is open source. We believe so strongly in the power of collaboration. There's just not enough developers in Sydney for us to work with. We need to work with all of you, all over the world, in Europe, in America, Asia, everywhere. There's been this huge theme of collaboration at this conference, which has been awesome to hear and see, and not fighting with other projects, not saying, we don't like you, Angular developers, we're React, we're better than you. Basically, this is cool. We all get to work together. Let's do it. Thank you.